Your mum made something on a Tuesday night that you have not tasted since. Something that smelled like safety. Something that stretched a few shillings into a table full of food. Something that disappeared so quietly, you never noticed it was gone until now. These are the 25 dinners that fed Britain through the 1950s. A decade of coal fires and ration books, of back kitchens and borrowed cups of sugar. A decade when housewives performed daily miracles with scrag end, bread heels and whatever the greengrocer had left at 4:30. These dishes did not vanish because they were bad. They vanished because someone decided convenience was better. Someone sold Britain a freezer, a packet, and a promise. And slowly, one Tuesday night at a time, the old suppers disappeared. Some of these you will remember. Some will shock you. All of them will make you hungry for something you cannot quite name. Let us count down the 25 forgotten British dinners from the 1950s that nobody makes anymore. Number 25. Boiled bacon collar with peas pudding. The collar was the cheapest end of the pig, sold at butcher counters for about 1 shilling and 4 pence a pound in 1952. Your mum soaked it overnight in cold water, then simmered it low and slow for 2 hours with a halved onion and a bay leaf, skimming the grey foam until the water ran clear and the kitchen filled with a deep, smoky warmth. Beside it, yellow split peas bubbled in their own pot until they collapsed into a thick, buttery paste, seasoned with nothing more than salt, white pepper, and a generous knob of dripping. The collar came to the table in thick pink slices, tender enough to pull apart with a fork, while the peas pudding was spooned alongside in a golden mound. Children spread it on bread. Fathers ate it straight from the spoon. Nothing was wasted. It was the dinner that asked the least and gave the most. When supermarkets could not package the slow ritual of the overnight soak, it simply stopped appearing on tables. Number 24. Deviled kidneys on toast. Monday morning in a 1950s household meant deviled kidneys. Your mum would buy lamb kidneys from the butcher, still in their white suet casing, for just a few pence. She halved them, snipped out the white core with scissors, and tossed them in a pan with butter, a teaspoon of dry mustard, a shake of Worcestershire sauce, and a pinch of cayenne. 3 minutes in a screaming hot pan. No more. The outsides sealed dark and caramelized, while the insides stayed just pink. Spooned onto thick slices of toast cut from a bloomer loaf, the sharp, mustardy sauce soaking into the bread. It was a dinner that cost under a shilling and tasted like something from a hotel dining room. By 1960, the National Food Survey recorded that kidneys appeared on British tables over twice a week on average. By 1990, the figure had fallen to almost nothing. The supermarket sealed packs that replaced the fresh butcher's kidney were often old and grey, and deviled kidneys never recovered its reputation. Number 23. Stoved chicken. This was Scotland's answer to the French casserole, made with none of the pretension and all of the warmth. Your mum layered sliced potato, onion, and chicken pieces in a heavy, lidded pot, seasoned with thyme and a good pinch of salt, added a ladle full of water and a knob of butter. Then she cooked it over the lowest possible flame for 1 hour until the potatoes at the bottom turned golden and the chicken fell from the bone. Stoved chicken asked for 1 pot, 5 ingredients, and patience. That was all. In Glasgow tenements, in Dundee terraces, in Fife farmhouses, the smell of it drifted through the close on winter evenings, promising warmth after a long, cold day. It could not survive the microwave age. A dish that required an hour of slow, watchful cooking had no place in the decade that gave Britain the ready meal. Number 22. Faggots in onion gravy. Every Midlands housewife knew the faggot. Pig's liver, heart, and belly, minced fine with onion, breadcrumbs, sage, and a scraping of nutmeg. Shaped into rounds and wrapped in a lacework of caul fat, then baked in a roasting tin flooded with dark onion gravy. In the Black Country in 1955, a tray of 6 faggots cost about 1 6 and fed a family of 4 with bread to mop up the gravy. They emerged from the oven, glossy, rich, and smelling of sage, and rendered fat, the caul crisped at the edges, the insides soft and deeply savory. Oral histories from Wolverhampton and Dudley recall mothers lifting faggots from the tin with a wide spatula, children fighting for the corner pieces, the ladle of thick gravy poured over until it pooled on the plate. Mr. Brains eventually put them in a tin, and the tin is still there, but it bears no resemblance to the hand-shaped faggot your grandmother made. That version is all but gone. Number 21. Herrings in oatmeal. Scotland and the northeast of England ate herrings the way the south ate chips. Fresh herrings were cheap, plentiful, and nutritious. Your mum would fillet them with practiced speed, press each fillet into coarse pinhead oatmeal seasoned with salt, then fry them in a dry pan until the coating crisped, and the kitchen filled with a smell that was either wonderful or terrible, depending on whether you grew up with it. In 1953, a dozen fresh herrings cost about 9p at the fish market. The oatmeal crust absorbed the rich oil from the fish, staying crunchy all the way through. Served with a wedge of lemon and thick slices of bread and butter, it was a dinner that took 12 minutes from pan to table. When fish began arriving at supermarkets pre-filleted and wrapped in plastic, the skill of filleting a herring disappeared from home kitchens within a generation. The dinner went with it. Number 20. Pigeon pie. This was the countryside's secret. Farmers, gamekeepers, and men who worked the land brought pigeons home throughout the 1950s. Their wives pulled the breasts from the carcasses, browned them in dripping with rashers of streaky bacon, then layered them under a thick short-crust lid with hard-boiled eggs and a dark, winey gravy. The pie baked for an hour, the crust turning deep amber, the filling bubbling through a small cut in the center. Pigeon meat was dark, rich, almost gamey, with a depth that no farmed chicken could match, and the price was often nothing more than the cost of a cartridge. National Food Survey data from 1956 shows game birds appeared on rural tables far more frequently than most city dwellers realized. When the land workers left for the factories and the factories left for the retail parks, the pie went too. Number 19. Cheese and onion pudding. Not a pie, not a quiche. A proper steamed suet pudding, but savory. Your mum made a suet pastry crust, lined a greased basin, filled it with grated strong cheddar, softened onion, a beaten egg, and a splash of milk, sealed the top with another layer of pastry, then steamed the whole thing for 90 minutes over a pot of boiling water. It turned out firm and golden, the cheese melted into the onion in a soft, yielding center, the sweet crust thick and sustaining. Sliced on the plate with a pool of thin brown gravy, a wheel of cheap cheddar fed 5 people for about 1 and 3 in 1957. When steaming fell out of fashion and microwave ovens arrived, nobody wanted to wait 90 minutes. The cheese and onion pudding vanished almost overnight. This was London's own. From Hackney to Bermondsey, the eel pie and mash shop was the working-class restaurant, the place you went on a Friday for something hot and filling for under a shilling. Stewed eels were spooned into deep plates alongside mounds of smooth, white mashed potato, the whole thing flooded with green liquor, a vivid parsley sauce made from the eel cooking water. A portion cost about 8p in 1955. The shops were tiled in green and white, the tables marble-topped, the service brisk and unapologetic. At the peak, over 100 eel and mash shops operated in London alone. By 2000, fewer than 30 remained. The Thames eel population collapsed. Tastes changed. The pie and mash shop became a museum piece, and the green liquor faded from London's memory. Number 17. Potted shrimps on toast. Morecambe Bay provided the shrimps. Lancashire housewives provided the method. Tiny brown shrimps, still warm from the boiling pot, were packed tight into ramekins and sealed under clarified butter scented with mace, cayenne, and nutmeg. Set in the cold larder overnight, they emerged as a firm, intensely flavored block, turned out onto thick, buttered toast for high tea or a Saturday night supper. In Fleetwood and Lancaster in the mid-1950s, a potted shrimp cost about 6p. The shrimping boats went out every morning. The women potted every afternoon. When cheap tiger prawns began arriving from Southeast Asia in the 1980s, potted shrimps moved from the everyday table to the weekend treat. Most people stopped bothering altogether. Number 16. Cullen skink. Your grandmother simmered undyed smoked haddock fillets in whole milk until just cooked, lifted the fish out, broke it into large flakes, and cooked diced potato in the smoky, golden milk until soft enough to half mash against the side of the pot. The haddock went back in. A knob of butter melted on top. A handful of chopped parsley settled over everything. It was dinner, not a starter. A deep bowl of it with a bread roll cost about 9p in a Moray Firth fishing town in 1956 and would keep a man working until dark. The problem was the haddock. Real undyed smoked haddock was a different creature from the bright yellow dyed fillets on supermarket shelves. One made magnificent skink. The other made something orange and vaguely fishy. The dish lost its reason to exist. Number 15. Liver sausage sandwiches. Every corner butcher made liver sausage, a smooth, spreadable paste of pig's liver, back fat, onion, and white pepper. It was cooked in a muslin casing until firm, then sliced cold for the tea table. A quarter pound cost about 4p in 1954, and it was spread generously across 4 thick slices of white bread. Children either loved the strong mineral richness or refused it entirely. There was no middle ground. When supermarket liver sausage arrived in sealed plastic tubes, the texture was smoother, the flavor milder. The product was technically the same, but somehow entirely different. Families who had eaten it twice a week stopped buying it. Within a decade, liver sausage had become a nostalgic curiosity. Number 14. Braised ox cheek. Your mum would buy ox cheek from the butcher for about £1 a pound in 1955, a cut so unfashionable most younger cooks had never heard of. She browned it in dripping until dark, added carrots, onion, a bottle of Macasson stout, and enough water to cover, then shut it in the bottom oven and forgot about it until supper time. 3 hours later, the cheek had melted into something almost unrecognizable. The fibers had separated into long, silky strands. The braising liquid had reduced into a deep, glossy sauce. Served with mashed potato, it was the most magnificent dinner a shilling could produce. Ox cheek disappeared from butcher counters as the trade in offal contracted. When it reappeared on restaurant menus 30 years later, it was presented as a discovery. The restaurants charged £14 for what your grandmother made on a Tuesday. Number 13. Stuffed breast of lamb. Breast of lamb was the poorest cut. Fatty and awkward, laced with bone and cartilage. But your mum could turn it into something almost elegant. She opened out the breast flat, spread it with a stuffing of breadcrumbs, mint, onion, and lemon zest, rolled it tight, tied it with string, and roasted it low and slow for 2 hours until the fat had rendered out, and the outside crisped into salty crackling. A whole breast cost about 1 and 2 in 1957, and fed 4 people with roast potatoes and a jug of thin gravy. Modern supermarkets do not stock breast of lamb. The margins are too thin, the preparation too involved, the customer base too unfamiliar with the cut. In 1952, Spam was not a joke. It was food. Your mum cut the Spam in thick slices, dipped each one in a thin batter of flour, egg, and milk, and fried them in shallow dripping until the batter puffed and crisped golden. Served with chips and a ladle of HP sauce, the fritter was crisp on the outside, salty and firm within. A tin cost about 1 3. It made dinner for 4. The ridicule that attached itself to Spam in the 1970s finished the fritter. As Britain grew prosperous and fresh meat became affordable, tinned pork became embarrassing. Chefs are putting it back on menus now at £8 a plate, calling it ironic. Your grandmother was not being ironic. She was feeding her family. Your mum chose the largest onions she could find, boiled them whole until just tender, then carefully removed the centers to create a cup. The scooped-out onion was chopped and mixed with minced beef, breadcrumbs, a scraping of Marmite, and a dash of Worcestershire sauce, then packed back into the shells. They were baked for 40 minutes and served with thick gravy and boiled potatoes. 4 stuffed onions cost less than £1 in 1958. The onion was the dish and the container simultaneously. When ready meals arrived, the stuffed onion had no future. You cannot mass-produce something that requires individual care to construct. Number 10. Savory mince and dumplings. Half a pound of minced beef, browned with onion and carrot, simmered in a thin gravy made from an OXO cube and corn flour. Suet dumplings were dropped on top with a dessert spoon, the lid clamped on, and 10 minutes later they had swelled into soft, yielding pillows that soaked up the gravy from below. By 1959, mince appeared on tables in over 60% of British households every single week. The mince is still there. The dumplings are gone. Modern cooks reach for pasta, for rice, for supermarket pizza bases. The suet packet gathers dust. The dumpling vanished without anyone deciding to stop making it. Number 9. Soused herrings. Your mum rolled fresh herring fillets around a slice of onion and a bay leaf, packed them tight in a baking dish, poured over malt vinegar and water with a pinch of sugar and peppercorns, then baked them for 30 minutes. Left to cool in their pickling liquid, they kept in the cold larder for 4 days. Eaten cold with bread and butter and a raw onion ring, soused herrings required no cooking on the day. When supermarkets introduced roll mops in sealed jars, most households switched. The homemade soused herring disappeared so gradually that nobody noticed the last time they made them. Number 8. Bubble and squeak patties with a fried egg. The 1950s version had a specific form. Your mum mashed cold leftover potato and cooked greens together, seasoned them heavily, then shaped the mixture into thick, round patties. Each patty went into a pan of hot lard, was pressed flat, and fried until a dark brown crust formed on both sides. Served with a fried egg on top, the yolk was broken so it ran into the crisp brown edges. This was Monday night's proper dinner, not a side dish, not a brunch novelty. The main event. The meal required nothing to be bought fresh. When fridges made it easy to keep food fresh, the need to cook the old food first disappeared. Your grandmother would never waste an ox tongue. Simmered gently for 3 to 4 hours, peeled while warm, curled into a round cake tin, covered with cooking liquid, and waited overnight in the cold larder. By morning it had set into a firm, sliceable round. Cut thin with a sharp knife and served alongside pickled walnuts and English mustard, it was the centerpiece of Sunday cold supper. In the early 1950s, pressed tongue appeared on tables across Britain every Sunday. When supermarkets offered packs of water-injected processed meat, the skill became unnecessary. The tongue retreated from the table and has not come back. Every allotment produced marrows in abundance. Your mum cut one in half lengthways, scooped the seeds, par-baked the shells, filled them with fried mince, tinned tomatoes and mixed herbs, then returned them to the oven, topped with breadcrumbs and grated cheese until golden. The marrow itself had almost no flavor, absorbing everything around it. The filling was the point. The marrow was the bowl. By 1965, the National Food Survey reported a dramatic decline in marrow consumption. Courgettes arrived from France, smaller and more fashionable. The stuffed marrow became the butt of jokes about British food. It was good, thrifty, and clever, but it never recovered. Mutton is the adult animal, over 2 years old, cheaper than lamb by half, and richer in flavor by double. A neck of mutton cost about 1 6 in 1953. Your mum covered it with cold water, brought it slowly to the boil, added barley, carrot, turnip, leek, and parsley. Then simmered it for 3 hours at the gentlest heat. The barley swelled and thickened the broth. The mutton fell from the bone. The vegetables turned silky. Served in deep bowls with bread, it was enough. Not a starter. Dinner. Mutton disappeared from supermarkets entirely by the 1980s. A whole generation grew up not knowing it existed. The broth went with it. Your mum bought a piece of brisket or silverside, already brine cured. She soaked it overnight in cold water, then simmered it for 3 hours with peppercorns and a bay leaf. Carrots went in for the last 40 minutes. The beef came out a deep, rosy pink all the way through. It was tender enough to carve with a dessert spoon, the salt exactly right after the overnight soak. The broth made the next day's soup. By the mid-1950s, salt beef and carrots appeared on midweek tables from Stepney to Salford. When supermarkets replaced the brine-cured butcher's joint with pre-packaged gammon, the salt beef supper ceased to exist as a domestic ritual. Number 3. Pan Haggerty. Northumberland gave Britain this dish, and Britain largely forgot it within 20 years. Potatoes and onions, sliced thin, were layered in a wide, heavy frying pan, with dripping between each layer, then cooked covered over the lowest heat for 45 minutes. The pan was flipped onto a plate and slid back in to brown the other side. Grated Lancashire cheese was scattered on top, and the pan went under the grill for 3 minutes. Brought to the table in the pan, cut into wedges. It fed 4 people for about 4p. The bottom was crisp and caramelized. The middle was soft. The cheese on top was golden and slightly scorched. It was perfect. When Teflon arrived and patience went out of fashion, Pan Haggerty went with them. Number 2, neck of lamb stew with pearl barley. Your mum browned neck-end pieces in dripping, then transferred them to a heavy pot with pearl barley, whole carrots, a parsnip, half a swede, and enough cold water to cover. 4 hours at the lowest heat. No checking, no stirring. Trust the pot. The barley expanded into the cooking liquid until the stew was almost solid. The neck bones gave up every drop of their marrow and gelatine. The vegetables became sweet and tender. The lamb fell from the bone and disappeared into the stew until you could not tell where meat ended and gravy began. The National Food Survey from 1955 showed that slow-cooked lamb stews appeared on more weeknight tables than any other single dish. When supermarkets replaced neck-end with pre-diced lamb leg, the stew changed. Leg does not melt. The original is gone. Number 1. Tripe and onions. This had to be number 1. Not because it was the most beloved, but because no other dish tells the story of the 1950s British table as honestly and as completely. Your mum bought dressed honeycomb tripe for about 8p a pound. She cut it into strips, placed it in a wide pan with sliced onions and enough whole milk to cover. and simmered it gently for an hour and a half until the tripe was completely tender and the milk had reduced into a pale, savory sauce. Thickened with a little corn flour, seasoned with white pepper and salt, it was served in deep plates with bread to soak up the sauce. In 1952, tripe accounted for 15% of all meat consumed in the industrial towns of Lancashire and Yorkshire. Over 300 tripe shops operated in Greater Manchester alone. It was not a delicacy. It was Tuesday. Children wrinkled their noses. Fathers and grandfathers ate with relish, remembering harder times when even tripe was not guaranteed. Oral histories from Bolton, from Wigan, from Bradford recall the tripe dresser's shop. The white marble counters, the pale heaps of dressed stomach displayed without apology. The silence at the table was broken only by the sound of spoons on enamel. By 1980, the tripe shops had closed. By 1990, the skill of dressing tripe had left the high street. By 2000, most people under 40 had never tasted it. Its disappearance does not mark the loss of a dish. It marks the loss of a relationship with food that could only exist when thrift was not optional and the entire animal was too precious to waste. Tripe and onions was the taste of the 1950s British table at its most honest. The dinner that nobody pretended to love and nobody forgot. From stuffed marrow to tripe and onions, from pan haggity to mutton broth, these 25 dinners tell one story. Not of bad food replaced by better food. Of an entire way of cooking, patient and resourceful and deeply local, replaced by a convenience that could travel on a lorry and sit under fluorescent light for a week. Your grandmother did not make these dinners because she had no other choice. She made them because she knew what she was doing. If any of these takes you back, leave it in the comments. I want to know which one you remember.